And we're back with the question and answer session, the Captain's Table After Dark, where we take questions from the chat here. This is the question and answer session with Algrid, Jail, and Mats, where we talked a bit about the Star Citizen's story in 2025, the narrative, the lore, where is it going to go, what kind of stories are going to look like, and a little bit about 1.0 and where the story is going to look like in the final version, first release version of Star Citizen. But we've got a bunch of questions that were asked by the chat, so we're going to get started right away with Del Ener, who asks, Is all audio or video missions an expected experience for an MMO in 2025? The only one I know is the Old Republic. How many missions should be voiced and or have audio? If I remember correctly, ESO has audio as well. There's a couple of more modern MMOs that do have audio and maybe not video, maybe not cutscenes and that kind of stuff. But I know Final Fantasy 16 has full blown cutscenes with its MMO as well. So modern MMOs have a lot more narrative flair inside of them if they are narrative MMOs. What do y'all think?
I think that you can achieve a really nice level of verisimilitude by having everything. Having a cutscene and then some text communication with the same character and another cutscene later, because that's how you interact with real people. We're talking on the fully voiced animated version right now.
Yeah.
Us four, where previously we were on a text chat and we existed in each other's worlds.
Yeah.
So. But I would really dislike if everything is voiced, because I think that actually puts a huge constraint on things, and it can be really bad for the narrative. For example, the change between the Elder Scrolls Morrowind and the Elder Scrolls Oblivion was when they went from it being fully text-based to everything really having to be voice acted, and the amount of content and the quality of content was hugely reduced as a result. So I think that they really that they should use they'll obviously use their capacity and their budget for animation to its fullest extent. They should use that as punctuation rather than being like every time you're on a main story it's fully acted, and the further you get away from the main story into kind of grindy things, the less fun it is, essentially, the less engaging it is.
If we're talking about that, I would definitely say that what you're saying is probably perfect. And a lot of the ideas, the way that I've always seen CIG, or at least I think CIG was going with it, is that you would have, like, even with mission givers, you would have go meet the mission giver in person, talk to them, get to know them, and then they would send you off to do a mission. And from then on, they'd give you text missions, maybe an occasional call, say, hey, do this for me. But it's going to be very vague and more like inserting any of the missions they've already created for other locations just into like, oh, go do a kill mission, go do a transport mission, whatever, where they don't have to be like handcrafted missions for these groups, but like a hopper of missions that you can be pulled from randomly while you gain reputation, and then you hit a reputation like point. Like right now we have from like starter to rookie, and then at rookie, in order to move up the level, you have to go back and meet them, do a little cutscene, do a little handmade, pre-made mission, then you go back through the hoppers and go through that way. So a combination of cutscenes, individual discussions, and then also a lot of stuff that makes it easier. Because at the end of the day, CIG needs to be able to make a game and needs to be able to do it quickly, especially with an evolving narrative, or to get people engaged and continue to be engaged with the narrative and with the game. So having fully voiced and fully mocapped scenes is expensive and time consuming, and so I don't see that happening. But I do see that we're still going to have some of those in the game in some way, shape, or form.
What I think.
Go ahead, Matt.
Go on. Sorry.
Matty.
What I think we will see is like a mix up between Bethesda's approach and like what was it? The single player space game where Andromeda was the last entrance. Mass Effect.
Mass Effect, yeah.
Like we will get a lot of like animated and voiced quests, like where you pick it up in a bar or so, and it's like just an like a generated for that type of quest line, and the quality of the face animation will like degrade from the main story to the like random encounters that you have. But I think like with the technology that CIG is working on, it's not as notable like as in a Bethesda game or so.
Mm.
Like where you can like tell that what the spoken word is not what they actually the NPC is saying. And I think we will tend in more to that, like for the day-to-day quests we will receive. And yeah.
Al?
Yeah, I think pretty much like you and Joel, I think we're probably all going to have said. I think we'll see those animated cutscene type mocap scenes. Just because CIG have their fancy dancy mocap studio, so you want them to utilize it. Otherwise, it's just wasted money. So I think we'll see those at times. I think the idea would be to see them for those key hook points, and that the advantage of that is you've leveled up with Miles, and he said, "Yeah, great. I can now trust you to do these jobs." When I level up with Miles, I can get the same scene, and even though we're all getting the same scene, it's still Miles saying, "Yeah, you've just reached that level. I can trust you to do these types of missions now." So that type of repetitive, kind of low scale, no, not saving the world type missions, I think work.
Yeah.
I think you want that realism of not every call, not every communication you and I have is in video. Sometimes it's text, sometimes it's voice, sometimes it's voice and video. And so I think for realism, you want that scale as well. So I'd like to think that's where CIG will go. If you don't, as Giles said, you don't want to go everything is audio and motion capture, because that just ends up reducing the quality of overall. You end up with a very shallow pool. By having all the options, you actually deepen the pool that you can have, and I think it does make it more real. So yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next question from Del Ener, who asks, what would your ideal result be for an event like Save Stanton, which has 3 chapters and will probably last a year be? Should player actions have an effect, or should CIG have full control, or a mix of the two? Mats, what do you think?
I think a mix of the two would be the best. Like, the general outcome would be clear, definite from CIG, but like the steps how we get there are like the player interactions and how fast and how in different side branches we would like expand. That's like player driven, so that CIG can still keep a grip on, okay, where do we want like the galaxy to develop and which of the next stories we want to tell, but still we get the feeling of, hey, we mattered, and yeah, we are the cause of what happened.
Jill?
I think that they'll, for any event, Save Stanton included, they'll probably have one outcome, and if they do have multiple outcomes, they'll have a list of multiple outcomes with an idea of how we could achieve them. Side A winning, side B winning. That goes for Save Stanton or in general. I think it would be good if the relationship for large universe-wide events, such as Save Stanton currently was a little bit more like the relationship between a D&D dungeon master and their game, where it's like going into it with an idea of what the outcomes could be, but if you surprise me, maybe things will change. Maybe the possibilities of outcomes could change. So that would be better, but I think they go in with it's like the Imperator election. They go in with the 5 candidates that they've picked. It's not that like we could elect you Imperator.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No
I'd hope.
writing candidates.
Yeah. Al?
No, I was going to basically pick up the Imperator thing. So, with the Imperator, they had an idea of who they thought would win, but they also had stories kind of where they'd go if X person won. And I got the impression that the Imperator Choice was not who we selected, was not, or who the masses selected. I certainly didn't pick Leonie Addison. I think the Xi'an plant, but certainly I got the impression that it surprised them as to which one was chosen. And yes, I was showing my my Mesorite tendencies, I think. Yes. So if I had a choice in of where I'd like to see the say Stanton go, of course Thurston wins.
Yeah.
But realistically, it's that idea of I think you want that. You don't want player control. As someone said in chat, you give players control, they'll destroy it. So you want that. You want the players to influence, but you don't want them to ultimately lose. So
Yeah.
and we've seen that in the things we've been able to be involved in, the election of our Tavaran senator, the elections for Imperator, the two elections we've had. You know, we've had an influence, but as Giles said, we don't get to select who are the candidates. They're kind of
Chosen
pre-vetted
us.
for us. And CIG are happy for any of those to be the one they have. They may have a favourite, but they leave it open for us to choose which one ends up being the case. So we end up with Leonie Addison because everyone wants
Go ahead, Joe.
Chaos. The chaos candidate, as Sherry put it. I was going to say, actually, you said like, oh, you don't want the players to lose, unless I misheard. I actually would really respect if they did let us lose if we didn't engage. And like a narrative decision that I respect the most out of gaming was the framing of the sequel to XCOM. And they said, XCOM 2, canonically, you lost
lose
in the first game.
Yeah.
And players were like, but I won. It's like, yeah, but we see the data and only 98% of people lost. So canonically, that's the answer now.
Yeah.
And I really respect decisions like that, and I hope they do make decisions like that.
Go ahead, Joe. Or Al. Sorry.
I used to do a D&D style con game. So we'd play massive game, big city, 30 or so teams, or 30 or so players in 6 or so teams. They'd play the scenario out, and we'd do 2 or 3 venues of it. In terms of working out the history for that story, which incidentally was telling the fall and decline of a Roman Empire in a different fantasy setting, we'd look at what happened in each of those events, and then we'd do, basically as Giles said, we looked at 98% of the results and said, that's the one that's history, even though this team changed the history over here. And I'd like to see that type of approach going forward. So I like that. But yeah, you do want to have that player influence, but you don't want the player to be... You want them invested, but you don't want them controlling. And if they don't get invested, you want the result to be negative. So I go back to what Aaron talked about back in 2014. So things have probably changed in terms of gameplay. But he talked about if the Vandal attacked Earth or Sol, and we don't do anything about it, Sol will get flipped to a Vandal system. It was that type of thing. And if we take a Vandal system and hold it long enough, the UAE will turn up and it will flip to a UAE system. So even back then, they were still looking at this dynamic universe. But if we don't invest in the things that are happening, bad things will happen, I think is what is on the cards.
I will say that I think Jail's point of view of like the DM style, I think is the most poignant way of putting things. CIG has to have an idea of where the story is going to go if they want the story to mean anything. Because as a forever DM, players are chaos. players will ruin your story because they don't know your story. So they'll do whatever they can to ruin your story. They'll do whatever one they think is fun because players often don't know what is fun is because they're just there to fuck around. And that's the hardest thing to do is to get players who either are not interested or not interested, not engaged, or not necessarily not engaged, but like new to like the idea of a TTRPG, or are intentionally there to just spike the story because they just want to be chaotic. Those two players are really difficult to deal with, and that's basically all of players in games, because no game player wants to be told what to do, because if they're told what to do, they'll go, no, I don't want to do that. I'll do the other thing. So having a story has to be there. There has to be some sort of narrative that they drive for, with some flexibility. Where like if the players do something fun, they can go, hey, there we go. I like that. We'll canonize that. Like Jumptown is a good example of that.
I was going to say, just like Jumptown.
Matt's is something.
Go ahead, Matt.
What I think is when we talk about story in Star Citizen, the dangerous part is that people will start to think about it like it's an single player RPG, or even like Final Fantasy XIV in its like quest, like where you experience all that hardship and stuff like that. But I think more like the story will be the game telling on the situations with quests. Then they will be instanced and open world content, and the main story changes will be only like open world content that like then change the situation in a whole based on the amount of instance content people did. And it's not something like you are the part or you are the reason why it changed. It's more like we will be a part of a faction. The glory will go to the faction, or one of the leaders of the factions, like Admiral Bishop and military win. Maybe a lot of players fought with them, but in the end, it will be the Second Fleet that changed the story. And so CIG has like can tell a story, and it's not individualized for every player, but also every player gets a part in it if he wants or if she wants to play that part. And I don't think we will see like you are the main character or like an important character in any of the big quests or any of the big solutions in the Star Citizen universe. Like even with the main storyline from 1.0, it will be onboarding quests over and over and over again, showing us factions and what they think about the situations. I don't think the main story will have us like choose effectively or will push us in one direction. It will be like just the first 10 pages of a book over and over again, but of different points of views.
Well, we'll see, because they did say they want citizenship to be a reward for that, and one of the things that citizenship is you get citizenship for something good you did for the Empire. So if you, I don't think never-ending intro missions is going to qualify as something that's good for the Empire. There's going to have to be some sort of major event that players are going to interact with in order to get that. So there's some sort of thing you have to do, some sort of big heroic thing you have to do to get that citizenship. The question will become, what is that? It will be one thing or other things like that. But
And
I think we strayed from
heard
the original question.
Yes, we
I
have.
can't remember what the question we were on.
Well, the question was what would your ideal result be for the event like Save Stanton? You know, should player actions have the effect, or should it be a mix of the two? And I think the idea being like what Matt was saying was like the question is the fundamental question is, what are the types of missions we're even going to get in Star Citizen?
Yeah.
Where is it going to even matter that we will have that option? The illusion of that, like we even have an option in the first place, or is it just going to be the way that the stories are being told in Star Citizen isn't like, here's a character, here you are the hero of the universe, you are the hero of Kvatch. It is, you are a pawn in the greater scheme of the universe, and your actions are not going to save the universe. Your actions are but a drop in a bucket of, gigantic proportions.
We influence events, but we don't control them.
Yeah.
We influence the economy, but we don't control it. I have a
yourself.
feeling that's
I control
where
the economy.
CIG will. Sorry?
Jail controls the economy is what he's trying to say.
Yeah. So I think that's where the type of thing that we'll see them go. But yeah, I don't see us being the full controllers of everything. I don't think that, I'm not going to save Stanton. I'm not going to be a great hero to save Stanton. I may have been at the Battle of Vega. I may have been firing a cannon at the Battle of Vega, which we all do if we play Squadron 42. But I don't save the day. I'm not the great massive hero who does everything. But I do understand, to pick up your citizenship idea, if we complete Squadron, we do get citizenship.
Well, and the main story of Star Citizen, 1.0 main story of Star Citizen, we also get citizenship.
Yeah, and so how else do you get citizenship? Because there's got to, and that's one of the things I liked about what they talked about at CitizenCon for the story in the Citizen in Star Citizen itself, is by putting that story in, you give players who have not played Squadron 42 the opportunity to learn about the lore, but also to gain citizenship. And citizenship matters. Like, one of the benefits of being a citizen is you can have a business that is across several systems. If you're only a civilian, you can only have a business in one system. And so for those who have visions of being a grandiose empire, you need to have citizenship. And it has other advantages, tax breaks or discounts, or so there are advantages, but there'll also be disadvantages. You go into another system which is not UEE, and being a citizen of the UEE may get you nada.
Let's keep going because we've still got a couple more questions, so I want to make sure we don't get too sidetracked. Steve the Dancer asks, do you feel the Expanse refinery ship will be extremely popular when material quality will really matter? Maybe. We don't know what other refinery ships are going to exist, though. That's the thing.
Yep.
And is it going to be the best quality, or is it going to be the most convenient because you can bring it to site?
Yeah.
These are kind of gameplay decisions that they'll need to make and balance and so forth.
Yeah. Also, could you build a better one on site?
Yeah.
Better quality. Because everything's going to have quality. Even the refineries may have quality. So, like, the refineries you get are not going to be as good. So,
to take a more positive answer to it, they're creating enough parameters that they can tweak around to make an engaging gameplay system.
Yeah.
Bingo.
And what do I need? Do I need it now, or do I want to wait until I've got 100% map to create the perfect one?
Yeah. Interesting. Like, the gameplay and the story of Star Citizen, from my opinion, has always been about making your actions matter, having your actions have consequences, and that was one of the things they said a lot of. And I think that's a good way of putting it. It's like, do you want to have it quick, fast, or good? Choose two. And so no matter what that choice is going to be, that choice is going to have consequences. So, yeah. All right, next question comes from Phantom5692, who asks, how long do you see CIG dragging out the narrative that Star Citizen is a dystopia society? At what point will the pendulum start swinging towards the center? I'm going to address this one because this is something that I have propagated a lot. I don't think CIG intentionally created the Star Citizen story to be a dystopia. Based off of Jail, Algren, and I's conversation with Dave Haddock, he doesn't see it as a dystopia. He sees it as more of a shade of gray, that it's sort of a morally ambiguous universe where there are people who are good and there are people who are bad, but most people have some reasoning behind their actions. So I call it a dystopia because to a compared to Star Trek or even to a degree like Star Wars, the universe of Star Citizen is much more nebulous and has a lot more rough areas. And those are good because those mean gameplay. It's not fun to live in a house and have a mortgage and have kids and go to your 9-to-5 job every day. That's not fun. That's not what this game is designed to do. It's supposed to be a space adventure. So having swing things back to normalcy in Star Citizen would be like ending a war. It's good for the people who actually, deal with that situation, but bad for everybody who makes money off that war. And we're the people who make money off that war in that context. So
It's basically like Warhammer 40k. Like
yeah,
we only hear about the bad things, but if you know the lore, you know there are hundreds of thousands of worlds out there. They never had an invasion in thousands of years. They live peacefully in the Imperium of Man or somewhere else and don't deal with anything what the story is about. So
yeah.
I think there's an
Also,
element
I
where you
mean-
can
Go ahead, Joe.
go on, Joe.
I was going to say, one of the common criticisms of the UEE is that it's USA in space,
Mhm.
and it's military and it's senator and all this. And the USA is a dystopia, unfortunately. I mean,
Yes,
from the
yes, it
perspective of
is.
most people,
As the only person who lived in this in the United States, yes, it
Yeah.
is a dystopia.
and also as the only person who in the last 12 months has changed which country they live in
yeah.
and moved from the UK to Denmark. And I'm looking back at the UK, and there's a lot of things that I accepted and didn't think about because they were too painful to think about because I couldn't change anything
Mhm.
while I was living there. And I look back and I go, oh my God, my home country is a lot more of a dystopia than I gave it credit for. If you continue to make games that look like the modern world, they are going to be dystopias, unfortunately. And that's kind of a part of any piece of media being a product of the world in which it exists in the real world.
Yeah, that's Dave in the writing team are writing the UEE to reflect the realities of the world that we live in today. And because they're reflecting those realities, a lot of the same sort of issues are going to come up. And it's a video game. So it has to have conflict. You don't have good stories without conflict. And so you need that conflict. And where best to pull it from the headlines, or from history where actually these conflicts happened. So it seems dystopian to the average player because it probably is, because that's how history is made. History is not often made in nice places with clean rooms and very prosperous people. It's made in very bad decisions or very squalor areas or through revolutions or changes in power or whatever. Those things happen. But
You heard it here first. Paul's leading the revolution against the modern US dystopia.
yes.
I also look at it in terms of the way in which CIG drafted the people for the elections, for the Imperator elections. None of them was perfect.
No.
Every one of them had something that was good and half a dozen things that were really bad. And it was choosing what you thought was the
Least bad.
the least bad. I think most of the community picked the worst of a lot because we picked Leilani Addison because she was AI. And everyone thought, oh, that means we'll get AI quicker.
Yeah.
No.
As we've seen.
As we've seen. But yeah, it was that type of, there was no real perfect choice and there was no real absolutely disgusting choice. They all had merits and they all had failings, and that kind of, if that's dystopian, then bring it on because it also felt more real.
Yeah.
And I think
Go ahead.
like most recent theme, like probably everyone here also in the chat noticed is with Pyro, like what people thought about what it would be and what CIG intended it in the end, what they wanted to be. Because when you say frontier, you dream about what America was back then to cowboy ages, and you ride from town to town, and the problems are localized. And what Pyro was actually like another region in the modern day where they had conflict in the last few months. And there are several factions in one country that's all fighting for the power, and it's more messy and not really organized, and that's what they wanted to go for from the beginning because of all the different factions. So yeah, I think it's also like communications, like what what CIG really like tries to achieve. And they keep it very vague. I get it because of the they don't want to go deep into the lore, but also they use wrong analogies like for it in a lot of cases, so people get the wrong idea, I think.
They can do that, yeah, for sure. I just know from talking with, like, I've been calling it a dystopia because that's an interesting title to lead with a video and to kind of like explain to people, because I do think there's a lot of people who see Star Citizen and go, oh, it's Star Trek Utopia, because they see like the advertisements and like the ship advertisements and stuff like that. It's like, oh, these people are this, like, look at all this great. It's like, have you never been to Hurston? Have you never been to Loreville? Like, have you never seen this?
A wonderful place to visit. What are you talking about?
Central Business District is wonderful, but then again, you have a giant golden statue of a dead man. Like, it's a lot more like ancient Egypt than it is like, modern dystopia.
Just because a Hurston guy put a statue that looks vaguely like a statue of Nero is irrelevant.
People are saying, why did they have to bring reality into my space game? Because it's more fun.
Like we should try to maintain the escapist appeal of Justice, and even if it's the one place where we can stick it to the oligarchs of Hurston or whatever.
Yeah,
because I mean that's part of escapism. But if you're going to make a game, where it's humans in the future in a context of conflict, parallels are going to be drawn to something.
Yeah. I think it's still going to be an escapist where you're there, but it's not a power fantasy. Star Citizen's not a power fantasy. You're not there to be the person. You're not going to save the universe. You're just a dude. You're just a dudette. You're just a person in a universe.
Yeah. We're not going to overthrow the Hurston or the people in ArcCorp or Crusader or Microtech. We may influence them. We may cause their product to go down a little. I fully expect we're going to see contested zones underneath Hurston. We'll see them in ArcCorp. We'll see contested zones in Orison. Just like the Siege of Orison, there'll be areas like that, but a contested zone. We'll see contested zones in Microtech. Going forward, both systems are going to be exactly the same, I think. There's going to be that little corner of Earth, a little corner of a universe, which appeals to someone, and they'll just make it their home and delve deep. And
I think there'll be something, at least narratively speaking, that's for everybody. That's kind of what they want to go for. So, and it's the reason why each system's going to be different in terms of its flavor and culture and other things. All right, next question comes from Steve the Dancer, who says, at the moment, a prospector full of tier 1 materials, we don't know if it's tier 1 or not, but takes about 24 hours to refine, and a mole takes 3 to 4 days to refine. Do you think that refining orders takes too long? Yes and no. I'm not much into this field of things, but I will say that the reason why those are long are to slow down progression, because they don't want you to be able to just power level, because a lot of those materials are very valuable and you can make a lot of money. And comparatively speaking, mining doesn't take as long as anything else in the game, and it isn't as dangerous as something like, say, bounty hunting. So those slow times are there to specifically slow you down for terms of power leveling money. But they're also placeholders. eventually those times will be changed or even go away entirely as players begin to be able to refine. So they'll find some sort of average player time for refining and put it in. I don't know, but I think they're where they need to be for the current time. But I am not the right person to ask about that specifically. Does anyone else want to put in there?
What
They
you
have
said.
enough parameters to
Yeah.
optimize a fun game system out of.
Yeah. So I was saying mining is far less profitable per time investment than salvage. I don't know. I have enough data on that, so I couldn't tell you if what that whole thing is. But I know that's the reason why they have that thing. And I think. Go ahead, Al.
I will just say on that I find salvage more therapeutically relaxing than mining, but I couldn't say whether it's more profitable or not. But I certainly find it more.
Yeah, and it'll change. So eventually, they'll move it around. I don't know what the right answer would be. I don't know if the answer is to like make salvage people who do salvage refine their materials as well. But we're still kind of in that early stage where other things need to be fall into place before they start changing things around. So,
yeah.
All right. All MMOs carry the tag "Write your own story" against the backdrop of canvas to play on. How will that square with a story CIG wants to tell with Star Citizen 1.0? That's the question we've been trying to talk about for the last hour or two. I don't think any one of us knows that answer. I don't even know if CIG fully knows that answer. But the one thing I will say is I hope they don't forsake the original idea where the main concept is you are a part of the universe, you are not the universe. Because I just dislike that narrative of you're the chosen one for every main story of an MMO, because it always feels very contrived. But that's just me. Al?
No, I agree. I like one of the things I liked coming into Star Citizen was the fact that we were only a small fraction of the universe, and so we could influence but not control. And that basically that, we may be a hero, we're not the hero. And that's I think the difference. And I like that idea. I don't even think, as Jaded Cynic says in the chat, if you want to be the chosen one, go play Squadron 42. I don't even think in Squadron 42 we're the chosen one. We are a hero.
Yeah.
Cal Mason's a bigger hero than we are. So at least from my understanding.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I haven't read the story. But,
Jill?
Cal Mason is a bigger hero than we are. And I think he'll be a bigger hero than we'll ever be. I think Old Man Cotton's probably a bigger hero than we'll ever be.
Jill?
Bishop is the hero.
Yeah, I think that there's 3 different stories that we will all experience to different degrees while playing Star Citizen. There's the story... I think that there will be a story where we are a little bit the special person in the special place at the special time, being this main story, where we all have to maintain a suspension of disbelief that this thing that is clearly everyone gets a chance to do was special to our character. Whatever it is. There's the story which is that time that Paul loaded a tank into the back of a ship and dropped it on the enemy base, which is the make your own adventure. And then there's the story of how the whole server pulled together and what did you do in the Great Battle of 2954 to defeat the Vandal Kingship that was the special event that month. And those 3 things aren't in conflict. They're all contributing to your story. I think we just have to accept suspension of disbelief when it comes to the parts where it is who really was the person who saved Leilani Addison from being hijacked by a Xena threat or whatever some plot point is, because it doesn't. I don't think that will affect my enjoyment of that. And if it does, I just won't play those quests.
Mats?
Yeah, I think also like we get like our daily experience. That's our story that we tell. There are like the big events that we can take a part of and be the hero story for ourselves, but not entirely for like everyone. And Yeah, like then there are like the big changing missions for the whole server. But what I don't think is that we, in any shape or form, get like the narrative hero perspective, even in a light form, because of the question, would you have to relive that as a new person after you had your uh, normal lifespan expires or you died the ninth time? So I think even like something that is getting citizenship or something like that, it will feel more not special. Let's put it that, not like that special event where it like changed course for any type of story than ourselves. It's like not connected to the big world.
All right, let's move on to the next question. Renamon asks, oh no, I already answered that one. We just did. Walter asks, do you guys feel we will get special crafting schematics from in-game events like Save Stanton in the future once crafting gets in? Example, do we kill the Vandal invasion and get alien stuff? They already said yes. Maybe not alien stuff, but yeah, crafting schematics are definitely going to be rewards for mission quests. So
We may not get the alien stuff, but we may get some really nice materials to craft some really nice.
Yeah, or the UE chucks us a F7A schematic for being good boys and girls and fighting off the Vandal, something like
I mean, they talked about that there also be like prototype schematics that we get, like not only military but also prototype stuff, if I remember correctly. And I mean, possibly there could be like alien stuff in it, but then it would be available for like at some point first the UE story-wise and then us, I think.
Which will be
Okay.
exciting because currently the only game that rewards you with classified military schematics are War Thunder and DCS.
Well, the problem is those are out of game rewards. You have to go to the forums to get those.
It's the meta narrative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually a big problem inside the War Thunder community because they say, well, I play all this time and hours, and all I have to, and nobody has to play the game. They can just go to the forums and get all the authentic military action experience.
But I love that narrative that people are arguing about details and then someone just drops in with a classified document and just leaks information.
Yeah.
All right.
A bit of a worry, isn't it?
Next question comes from Walter again, who says, do you also feel crafting schematics are going to be reward for mission reputation rewards? Yes. Almost. Yep. Yeah. They've already said that. So.
Yep.
Renamon asks, oh, no, that's already. That's a statement saying that they already said that plus lootable discovery from the loot table. The question will be the quality of the blueprint. Yeah, that's the question. The quality of the blueprint. But I don't think it's actually going to be the quality of the blueprint because blueprints are the same quality. The thing that's the quality is you have to research. You have to research things to increase the quality of the thing you already have. So
there's
maybe
lots of
the
parameters to build a good gameplay system around.
Yeah.
Quality of the equipment, of the blueprint, of the materials that go into it. Maybe just a blueprint that requires fewer materials than the standard. All of these are advantageous.
Maybe it's also to talk about like civilian, industrial, military, like that kind of quality.
I just think just go raid Asperia. Raid their offices.
They have all of them.
Yeah, they've got all of them, and if I don't have them, they collect them. So, yeah.
All right. All right. This is a good one. I'm going to let me see. I'm going to stop the questions for now because we're kind of coming up there. Stop.
So if you wanted to ask a question, you're just plumb out of luck because a bot is being killed.
Yes, I'm going to end the unpin. There we go. All right, so I'm going to save this question for the last question because I think it's a good question. But Renamon asks, this is the next question after that is, and Renamon asks, but do you want systems like Pyro to be in a state of forever conflict, where the king of the hill ebbs and flows only between chosen set of factions? Yes.
I mean, they are they. It's also like in the plan of CIG and what they want for end content of the game, like Pyro in specifically what they showed, and maybe they will change it later down the line. But what it will be in 1.0 is this system where like all the player factions are like actually fighting over control, and the NPC factions, I think, will be more like a controller for CIG to regulate the conflict between the players. Like they can like say, okay, the pirate faction now attacks this leading player faction and stuff. So naturally, Pyro will be this everlasting fight between players, NPCs, and NPCs and players, because it has to be for the player economy also.
Yeah, in the grim darkness of the 30th millennium, there is only war.
And
that's
given
the point.
Fact,
you know,
given the fact that in Pyro you can back the headhunters, you can back Citizens Prosperity, you can back the other factions. So players are going to be having an influence there. Now you want it to be that, but you also don't want it to forever. The dance forever being the same, but the dance is forever changing, but the dance forever being the same. You, in a sense, want there to be some change. You want to be able to see the progression of progress going on.
Yes.
Or whatever that is. And so if it's just forever never changing, then I don't think that's a good thing.
No,
but you do want things...
It wouldn't be a good thing if it's just switching between 3 states. Let's say there's 3 gangs, and depending which gang's in vogue at the moment, it's a different set of services on Ruin Station, something like that.
Yeah.
It would be better if it was just systemic and it will equilibrate and it'll ebb and flow, and they can throw a bomb in, to mix things up again, so that it's not that the dance is just switching between 3 states. It's whether like the King of the Hill stuff, is that going to include player factions, or is there going to be sort of the player faction King of the Hill and the PvE King of the Hill scenario running in parallel? We have to wait and see for any of that, though.
I that's a good point of view, I think, and I think if the question is more about will we have the same factions over and over again, the answer is no. We'll probably see CIG come up with new factions and other things like that. But I do see that's the point of Pyro. Pyro is supposed to be faction warfare. It's supposed to be MPVE and PvP meet. We already know that to a degree, we kind of already have that answer. There will be a forever war between the PvE factions, and the PvP factions will be fighting over the seal stations so that they can control and defend their own stations for permanent protection. So there will be sort of this duality where the PvE players are focused on Bruin and the PvP players are focused on Seal. So
Xena threat,
and I think you'll probably see that
threat, Xena threat, Anna threat, Benna threat.
But
just alien bad.
Yeah, like you'll see those types of things in most systems where there's lack of control for those, where you need to have those shields to protect your bases or whatever. But you also, as the empire or the systems expand, and we end up with the Tavaran new civil war at the Branna system, and that becomes a focus of where the gameplay is. You'd hope that other areas would become more, I suppose, stabilized or civil. Whether it's the gangs that are in control now impose a law that basically brings that stability, or whether it's a UEE or whether it's an independent faction. But you do want that sense that the systems ebb and flow between chaos and order. And that would be a nice thing to see, that Pyro's not always just forever war, but there are times where it goes through a lull period or a stable period and then erupts again. And
I think we'll definitely see that also in the narrative of the events, like early systems. So like each system's gonna have its own theme, and so if somebody's like, well, I don't want to be in Pyro where everything is just like stabbing each other in the liver constantly, kidney punches all the way down. I think it's gonna be you don't have to be. You can go to Nyx, or to Castra, or to Terra, like where where you won't have to deal with that as much. But people in Pyro will have an advantage because they also have all of the rare materials and the highest quality materials because it's constantly in this chaotic conflict. So it's a question of more balance rather than simply purely narrative concepts. It's just what is fun, how does it work, and I'm sure if it doesn't work properly, CIG will change it
to make it fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next question comes from this is actually kind of a cool like add-on to that. Call Me Teach says, I thought I'd throw this question in the mix. How long do you think it'll take for CIG to add the rest of the factions to Pyro? I can't be a fire rat, and now I'm sad about it. I too wish to feel the whispers of the prophet on the nape of my neck. But that's a good question. If we take Chris Roberts' letter from the chairman at its face value, I think those additions of different factions is an easy content win for CIG to do and would make sense for CIG to focus on this year. But it's entirely up to that.
I could see that also being a way to dilute the power of those factions that we've got at the moment that we can side with. The second you add another 2 or 3 factions, the players go to play those ones, and so you'll see the strength of the factions in power drop.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see that as a way of balancing or bringing about change within the system.
Mm.
But yeah, it'd be nice to see all the factions that are in there have an ability to side with them, and they'll each have benefits and negatives.
Mats, do you think we're going to see factions, new factions come in for Pyro sooner or later?
I would say more midterm. Not it would be probably not in the next patches, like the next 2 or so. Just because of all the assets they need for those factions also. And I think a lot of people would be a little bit disappointed because the only difference of the factions is how they look. They don't play different. You don't get any like special bonuses, special mission types. Even for the fire rats, like you want to be I don't know, like burnt skin or something, being a little bit more specific for these very specific factions. So I think we will see some more factions till the end of the year for sure, but not in the extent that people want them to be. Like as with the system of Pyro, where everyone thinks, oh yeah, that's the new big thing, and everything will be different, and then it's actually like not really. I think for that we have to wait a little bit further. But if you don't only want the cosmetics, yeah, probably till the end of the year, 1 or 2, maybe.
Okay. Jail, do you think we're going to see new stuff coming up, new factions being added to Pyro soon?
I think I kind of think that when questions make for the most interesting CIG answers and announcements, and the least interesting fan speculations, because I mean, the more meaningful they are, the longer they'll take as well. So do we want just do we want the factions without the content? I don't know.
Yeah,
they'll arrive when they'll arrive, and I'll play them.
Yeah. I think that picks up the. I think they'll go down the line of not putting the factions in until they've got content for them. It's a bit like not putting ships in now until they've got the gameplay for them. So I'd like to think they go down that line, but we'll have to wait and see.
I mean, there will be exceptions, like with the ships and waiting for the
Yeah.
content.
I think they've realised that they get punished more for releasing something that is not fun than they do for just not releasing it.
Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
I think we taught them that lesson too many times. That if they don't release something, we'll moan about it, but that's just the normal background of people following Star Citizen. That
Yep.
things aren't out yet. Whereas if
But if I release something
it
that's
arrives
dumpster
and it's
fire.
bad,
Mhm.
then that's much worse. Much worse.
I mean, that's what the letter of the chairman was all about. Like,
Yeah.
we want to focus about the fun of the gameplay. Please.
All right, let's move on to the next question, which is Phantom asks, how long is CIG going to maintain the narrative that the UEE is a dystopia? Wait, we've already answered that question.
Did that one. USA is a dystopia.
I think he answered. I think he asked that question twice, so that's why it popped up again.
It is one of the problems with the bot, I think.
Yeah.
The bot is wonderful.
Tazwin asks, do you think we will get item rewards, maybe even ships in story missions? Yes, we already have with say Stanton. So, yes, 100%.
Yep.
And we will with Save Stanton Chapter 2. All right, so I'm going to ask Steve's question, then Philippe's, and then go back to Steve's question that he asked earlier. So Steve asks, do you feel there will be a crafting deck in every system? If so, do you think if you want to make something at base quality, like a fabricator deck, where you can go to the deck on a station and go fabricate something in that station, versus having to build your own fabricator or have it in a ship, do you think we'll have some sort of like street level access to fabrication in the game? Al, what do you think?
I think for playability, they probably will.
Okay.
Or it will be an easy way to get to the place that's got it. So whether it's a neighbouring system. But yeah, otherwise it feels like you'd be punishing people who haven't purchased that thing.
There may be a fee to it.
Purchasing it just makes it convenient.
Yeah. I guess there might be a fee to it. I could see it, but yeah. Jail?
Yes, I think just like mining and refining, they'll expect that gameplay system to be as accessible that anyone can go and buy the multi-tool and go and try and do some hand mining as a taster of like, hey, maybe you want to invest some time into renting a prospector. It'll be the same for letting people dip their toes into fabricating.
Mats?
I would agree to 80% of that, just because fabricating would tie into the NPC NPC economy. Thank you very much. So that it would be, if you just want to have quick access to an item, you would go to a shop and buy it instead of fabricating it yourself. But not as big as an not as big as an hurdle to get into. So you have to dedicate hours of gameplay to unlock it. But like you said, like a fee, or like you have to rent a location or something like that in any shape or form, so that you can tip your toes into it very early on if you want to do that, but not in that point that like in other MMO games or like crafting games where you have the crafting table like in the 5th minute and there are basic tools everywhere. Like, I don't think that will be probably the feature that CIG wants it to be.
I could definitely see it also being a time thing where like for like your fabricator that you build yourself on a planet, it's going to be like leaps and bounds better. There's got to be a reason to make your own fabricator. There's got to be gameplay reasons for you to move that direction. Without that, no one will do it.
Yeah. But I think your general citizen's experience of it is going to be a lot of FOMO, because they are going to get blueprints as drops, as we've discussed. So you're going to have this inventory of blueprints, some of which maybe you think you're going to sell, but some of which go, oh, you could craft this if you find 3 iron or whatever.
Yeah.
And you try that a couple of times, and you see all the nice things that you need a level 2 or level 3 fabricator for.
Yeah.
And that's how you induct people into a system, into a gameplay system.
Yeah, to get them to go, oh, well, I'll go over there, or I'll find somebody who knows this, and that also encourages gameplay because like interactions. So that you may not have a level 2 fabricator, but your friend might, or another person might. Now suddenly you're like,
and they may not have that blueprint you've got, so it becomes a nice synergy
for making players interact. Yeah,
like that's also like a point where I'm coming from because I'm a trader from heart on, and I don't want to have to do anything with mining, base building, or fabricating or stuff, anything like that. I want to have other players where I can throw money at them, and they upgrade my stuff, build my stuff for me. I don't have to know them. I don't have to be in the same org as them, but I'm a customer. Here, take my money. I get the stuff and I'm off. Like, I don't want it anywhere that you have to engage in any kind of gameplay so you can progress to something that you want.
Yeah. So not forcing players to do gameplay they don't want to do, but like giving them, I see it. All right, so there's actually one I skipped, which we'll go real quickly, which is Essential Asa asks, would CIG ever consider audio tours of locations through the mobiGlass? Maybe, but I think that's definitely a Galactopedia, where the Galactopedia comes in. Now, I hope the Galactopedia has a voice, because a lot of those sorts of in-game encyclopedia, like Wikipedia, sort of like location where you can go like read stuff about the background, a lot of that does have a voice option. So I'd love to have a voice option with that. But I don't think that you'd need to have like the old museum tours where you put in your headphones and says start the player now, and you press play on the recorder and you walk and it'll kind of explain those sorts of things. I don't think you'll ever have something like that, but you might have something where you can. I think they had that in Starfield, where you could go up to like the museum before you go join the United Colonies, and they were like told you the history, and you push a button and it would like kind of light up the things, and it would have a voiceover kind of talking about that.
It would be very smart if the mobiGlass did give you a notification of there is a Galactopedia article about the thing you're looking at.
Yeah, like a little update being like, whoop, hey, take a look at that.
They kind of have that stuff already on Horizon. If you go to the there are like info boards.
Yeah.
And they have like a play button in the right upper corner. You can push them and it will read the text out loud. So
there's also, well, we don't have it at the moment, there's the Arc Station.
Yeah.
The Arc Station Museum, which is basically the repository of all things, which is kind of where the star map is kind of developed and comes from. So I can imagine if you go there, you could get more of that interaction with the exhibits or information. So there's lots of options CIG have got to go that they've already established exist in the game or exist in the universe. It's just we don't see it at present.
Yeah, I think building a systemic solution to the problem rather than a bespoke solution to the problem is what CIG would do. And I think the easiest systemic solution for CIG would be just to make it so that you're staring at something, a prompt will pop up saying, check out your mobiGlass for said thing, and then or check out the Galactopedia for said thing, and you click on it, and then it would give you sort of like text, or you can click a play, and someone will read the voiceover of what's going on. But
so great. So we get mobiGlass ads.
Yes.
You've just watched this episode.
Yeah. Would you like to watch the next one?
Yeah. Would you like to watch this one?
Jenny's saying like, is this just Clippy? So it's like Clippy's like, do you want to hear about the UEE?
Yeah. Hey, I would love some immersion in that sense for someone to be like, shut up, Galactopedia. I know. I'm in the middle of fighting this guy. Would you like to know about the Van Duel? Unless you're going to give me a gun, shut up,
I'm hiding.
But
What was that? You're hiding? No.
Ba-ding! Hiding places in the verse. Like, God damn it.
and I mean, for the other stuff, I mean, even now we have the guide system. There are a lot of players that are willing to give you any kind of tour
Mhm.
and tell you about stuff. Not
Yeah.
about everything, but about a lot.
I think it's also something, you know, I do the lore tours all the time on the floor of, you know, different events. I'm sure I know other people do similar stuff with like tours around the Stanton system where like they say, on your left, you will see, you know, Hurston, you know, we're currently leaving Loreville. Loreville was founded in blah, 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 you know, that kind of thing. So. All right, we've got 2 more questions, and then we're wrapping it up. The first question is the second last question is from Philippi13, who asks, is there a possibility of there being a branching storyline in Star Citizen? Something where choices will change the outcome of the narrative? Not in a traditional sense, I don't think. Not in the traditional Chris Roberts sense where, you know, your choices will lead you down different paths, and those different paths lead to completely different outcomes for the end game, because of, I think we've talked about this a lot over the last couple of hours, which is just there needs to be a story. There needs to be some sort of movement and some sort of narrative that goes forward. And if there are several million people who have this game, and if every person had an influence that direct on something, I don't think that would happen. But I think we also talked about this before. You talked about this, Mats, where with like the Helldivers 2 example, where like you might be able to slowly influence the change by doing specific actions, but that isn't going to really branch as much as it's just going to alter the course of those things. And not like your experience will be different from somebody else's experience because of this, but like that sort of thing. So, what do you think, Al?
I could see them doing something like that, picking up, as you said, where if 90% of a population of players do mission X and go down that line, I could see that's where the story gets skewed. And then those people who didn't choose that, well, that's because, yes, you were in this aspect, you were on the losing side, if that sense.
Mm-hmm.
But the UE is now drifted this way. You could keep going down your negative line if you want, but you're really drawn into that new line that the UE is going. So I could see that. But if you're really after that story, that one-off story where you are able to change it, have a bigger impact, you're playing Squadron 42.
Mm-hmm. And there's still
So
probably going to be a canonical ending to Squadron 42, but yeah.
I mean, it has to be. It is already like history. What happens in Squadron 42 and how the outcome is.
Yeah.
I think these branching stories. When you think about the series The Mandalorian, you probably will get to places to a small village, and they get harassed by bandits, and then you can like in Fallout, you talk to each side and choose a side, and then that settlement gets taken over for a time or something like that, and you actually had an influence for yourself.
It's a bit
But-
like
Yeah, if it happens, I think it would be minor, and it would be like it'd be very minor impacts. Like, did you say mission giver A or mission giver B? Well, then that's the one you'll see later. Kind of like you know, Caden and Ashley in Mass Effect 1 and later games.
Yeah.
And
a bit like.
I mean, yeah, but maybe it is value adding to have parts of the main story where you've got to pick one of 3 little quest lines, and maybe they all come back together. But if you want to see the other ones, you've got to, you know, maybe start a new character, because I mean, again, that just it's value adding because it means that you've made a choice that has been special for that run, that playthrough, and it does cause you to go back. I mean, I'm thinking again of Morrowind, one of my favorite games ever, where you could choose one of the great houses of Morrowind to join, and that was a quest line, and it locked off the other 2. Yeah. And they never really did that again in the Elder Scrolls,
Oblivion or
like the
Skyrim.
Yeah, you had the Imperial Stormcloaks. That's it.
I will add this before letting you go, Al. I I could see that being because the main conflict in Star Citizen is supposed to be, and the main story is supposed to be the Earth Terra conflict that's going on, that sort of separation. So I could see the main mission having a end point where you pick a side, where like you are siding with Terra or Earth, and that will then drive you down different story options and different unlocks. But I don't see that as really a branching narrative as much as it's a your personal choices will matter to your personal reputation, like anything else. Like just a big version of the faction conflict. Instead of these little tiny factions of the systems, you're talking about inter-system factions, that sort of thing. And so what Jail's saying, like sort of like you're picking the big boy. Who are you really, found like backing for this big conflict? Go ahead, Al.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to say in the Squadron 42 twos that we saw, you do have those options. Do I save McLaren? Do I go without McLaren?
Mm-hmm.
So they have their choices you make. Do they change the story? No, but they do change. They may change the way in which Bishop or others react to you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that kind of balance where you're changing a bit like with the choose an option and it closes off the other options you've got because you've went down that line. So it gives the players choice, but it doesn't change the overarching story, I suppose.
Yeah. All right, this is the last question, which I saved because I thought it was a pretty good one. It covers a little bit about Star Citizen, and I'm going to let Jail answer this one first because this one was specifically dealing with Jail's conversation about regen. But it has to do with what regen is for, which is Death of a Spaceman. Shampasta asks, some people feel that Death of a Spaceman is bad because over time a player gets attached to their in-game avatar, and having to restart a new character is bad, and players may stop playing. What are your thoughts? Good, bad, or ugly?
I think that the gameplay aspect and design is prime, and really that hasn't changed. It was always every time you die you're trying your luck and maybe this will be your last. That was from the first Death of the Spaceman. The context around it has changed, the mechanics in how they explain it have changed, but really a lot of it is still the same, that you were always dicing with real death, and so that never changed. Do I think that's great? It has pros and cons. It has the pro of allowing death and conflict and player adversary relationships, while also kind of attaching this weight that if someone just pops you randomly, that's probably not going to be a real death, but if you're the kind of person who's continuously flying into the sun, you're going to open an account with the Undertaker. And it's I think that's the bed that they've made long ago and lay in. I've never really had any problems with that. I more had problems with other issues around how they decided to launch and change things, which were mostly real world, more project management and annoyance at bad comms and stuff like that than actually a criticism of what's going in the game in the end, which is what we're getting.
Al, do you think it's a good idea, Death of a Spaceman?
I think Death of a Spaceman is a great idea. We're not immortal, and the idea was always that you would have, as Giles said, death would matter, choices matter, and eventually you'd get to the point where your character would be dead, and you would be inheriting from, you'd kind of, ones I heard is either you'd wake up at the character screen looking in the mirror as your new character, or you'd be at the gravesite as your character. They've died this hero's death, or they've died this whatever death, and you're now inheriting their stuff, and that would give you a choice of, you wouldn't lose all your rep because you'd still have some familial rep, but it would give you a chance to redirect where you went or undo the errors you'd made. So you have, as Jaded Cynic says, you have an error and you carry on. It just gives you but it gives that sense of not being infinite and not being existing forever. Could they have had a better method than the regen check? Yeah, but I always saw the regen tech not as changing Death of a Spaceman. It was just explaining it in a way that they thought. I think using Vandal tech and re-engineering Vandal tech for our own purposes is wrought with disaster. And I think we haven't heard the last of what's happening with that tech or what's going on. And,
Yeah.
So,
Matt,
yeah.
Mats, your thoughts? Do you think Death of the Spaceman is a good mechanic?
I think how CRG intended it or wanted to be, it is a good mechanic. I think the problem the community now has with Death of a Spaceman is that it's not well explained because it's not very defined yet. And when people think about someone telling them, yeah, the game will kill your character, they think about hardcore MMOs, like the hardcore version of Path of Exile 2 or World of Warcraft, the hardcore servers, where you have stats, where you have special gear, and it's you start at 0 and grind the same path again till you reach the point where you died, and you have to do that over and over and over again if you're not good enough. And I think that's where people come in and say, yeah, I don't want that in Star Citizen. And that's not what it will be. We know that so much because we don't have stat points in Star Citizen like that. We don't level our characters. We have reputation, and we get like a soft setback, or and it will be more of a continuance and a forced branch in how you interact with the game world because of the lost reputation you got, but also like ships or weapons, how we inherit them. That's not very clear yet. So there is a big fear of, will I lose everything? Do I have to pay a fee like to inherit it? Will it be lost if I don't? Will it be stored till I get the fee paid? And I think that's the big concern of how much do I actually lose if I die? And because no one is really talking about it, like not technically but philosophically, a lot of people think about it as a hard reset. And that's not what it will be. We don't, the details we don't know, but it will not be a hard reset. That's what we know.
Yeah. But I mean, and that's the gameplay side of thing, which, as you say, I don't think has ever really fundamentally changed. I just felt, I felt very frustrated, and it was more concerns about the standard and nature of sci-fi that they're aiming for, when they were quite happy having a discussion where they said, if you get shot in your arm, that can damage your arm DNA, and then when they clone you from your backup, you might not have an arm. Because I have no issue with the idea that if you die with arm damage and you could have a prosthetic, that's the cool part. That's the cool part. But when they get the, as you say, the explanations and the narrative explanation, and it's not just sort of the aspect of sci-fi where we fill in what we don't know or we go beyond what we don't know, like having faster light travel. It was a version of sci-fi where they were expecting us to not know how DNA works.
Yeah.
That DNA is in every cell of your body. That if you damage your arm, it doesn't make any difference to the DNA that made that arm. And trying to, like, that's just low standards. That's just like crap, basically. And I don't want it to be that. I want it to be well written. And the reason why we were having that discussion was because they were kind of making those writing proposals without going through the writers.
Yeah.
And the writers got their hands on it later and came up with regeneration, which was fine. And that was the issue I had with it, was more just like the writing, the narrative, and the lore side of things was being treated as something to be sorted out later. When Star System works best, when the artists are engaging with the material going back, and you get things like a 2014 document causing someone to say Henoism when they talk about a 2025 full
Yeah.
reveal of
Yeah.
of an environment and character.
It's the writing process should go hand in hand with the developers. The writing should never overwrite the developers, but the developers should always keep in mind to give you the context to put it in a way that I think Al would put it as well. It's where John Crew decides to make the Ares because he wants to make a combat Crusader ship, despite the fact that the entire narrative of Crusader is that they're pacifists, basically.
And to blow Benoit's trumpet as well, Kruger Intergalactic would have been a better choice for that ship that was basically a upgunned, upsized Pisces P-52.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So yeah, it's I agree that I think it was a ham-fisted decision that they're going to have to learn to live with, and they're gonna. It's definitely going to have to be. It has to be explained better because, like as far as I know, it doesn't have anything to do with DNA, but it also has to.
That's the thing. They haven't. They walked back on that. It was in the original.
It was
earliest announcement, right? And like I say, being a biologist, I would have immediately told you your brain is rejecting the organ because the brain thinks that it's lost it. We bought that with the Matrix.
Yeah,
we can buy that here. That's fine.
Yeah.
That works perfectly.
Trauma is not something we fully understand in the brain today. So it's easy to just be like, trauma did it. Okay, why? What is trauma? Trauma's fucking weird. It does weird things to people's brains. All right,
we don't know what it is, but
yeah.
and I think that's where they ended up going with.
Yeah, but it's as Jail's point of view is that they just sort of had to trip over themselves to get to that point, and they had to work for themselves ways back to get to that point. And in terms of the mechanics, though, I will say before I let you go, Matt, the mechanics of the thing, I think Death of a Spaceman, as you were saying, Matt, is fundamentally misunderstood by most players because I think most players think it's they think it's Path of Exile to hardcore.
My story's ended.
Wow. Yeah, I gotta start again. And it's not. It's much more along the lines of each life is more of a ding on your hard health bar, and I think most people miss the point of it. The point of it was more to allow for players to make mistakes and have these problems, and also to have like consequences for your actions, and those actions build up over time. But even CIG has said the idea that you could reverse some of this process, where you could get some of your lives better by doing certain missions. So players who are really invested in their characters could always go back and fix the problems later, but that still requires them to invest time in doing something else. Actions having consequences. But it also does stem from CIG's desire to explain everything, absolutely everything in the game, which they don't always have to because mysteries are good. It's okay to have like, why did this thing happen? I don't know. We can do a little exploration there, but like players do that. So,
and the other thing to point out to people is that at the moment, like I did see in chat, someone was saying that people just go around killing people for lols at the moment.
Yeah,
and they do partly because at the moment
there's no consequences. Yeah,
there's no consequences. It doesn't matter because we're still in the alpha beta process, and Death of a Spaceman does not matter at this point in time. Because it doesn't matter how many times you die, you still come back. Once we go into release, we will have X number of lives per character, and yes, you can extend them by doing extra insurance or extra missions or
not dying.
Yeah,
not dying. Yeah. So,
go ahead, Matt.
It feels to me that one of the main ways people are going to interact with it is, if you're dying once every play session, that's fine. If you're dying 100 times, you're going to go through a few hard deaths.
Yeah,
and it kind of like it's a frequency thing. I think that's going to be one of the main impacts on it. Is just don't die too many times in too short period.
Yeah.
The biggest problem on the whole Death of a Spaceman thematic is also the biggest feature, the most important feature on how it will work and on what it depends is not in yet, and that's the reputation system. And what choices do you want to make? Is it too risky now, or do I have the life left that I want, or I want to risk spending in pursuing that goal? And if for most people, it's just too complicated to think about the potential feature that might work in tandem with 3 other depending features. And I mean, but there is a similar game out there that has a Death of a Spaceman mechanic, and I don't think anyone is thinking about it. It's
Dark Souls?
From Crytek, from Crytek, the game. The Hunt Showdown.
Oh, Hunt Showdown, yeah.
Your characters die. If you go in and you get killed after the 10th match, you leveled up your character, your hunter dies. But you also have experience and stuff that goes into your account, which can you then adjust to the next hunter you will choose to play. But if you die over and over again after each match, then it's a lot more difficult to go forward to, but also you are not really attached to that character. You only get attached to it if you progress in it.
Okay, yeah.
But also you get an around experience bonus, so it's not that bad. Yes, it's bad, but not rage quitting. I quit the game and I'm out bad, because Hunt Showdown works.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say that the other thing to the question is more, is this going to make people stop playing? People play hardcore MMOs all the time, like Path of Exile 2 and WoW have hardcore servers that people play, people enjoy, people want to have that thrill, and I think that's really going to be the differences. And Star Citizen's trying to thread the difference, like split the difference between these ideas, where if somebody's really invested in their character, they're going to play it like a hardcore MMO, like they don't want to die. So that's going to change how they play the game versus somebody who is playing the game as just getting in, go join myself. I might die a few times. I have a big death, whatever. I have to pay some fees and I move on. Like I got a little bit, I lost some experience, whatever. I pick myself up and keep going. So, yeah. All right. Well, that's the last question. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for, make sure you check out Algrid on the Info Runners. Check out Jail's channel, especially if you want to hear anything about alien languages and or UEE rank structure and UEE ship names and such. She's
and Vandal drinks and
Vandal drinks and such. Especially if you're interested in Squadron 42, a lot of people have watched some of my UEE Navy videos and were like, I want more stuff. If you want a lot of the detailed, very, very basic, or not basic, very like
granular.
Yeah, granular like look at the UEE rank structures or UEE ship ships names and where they came from and such. Check out Jail's videos and keep an eye out for Matt's and his lore series coming out pretty soon. His new lore channel. For right now, you can check out his Matt's Blue Eyes YouTube. All of those are linked in the description below. And if you did enjoy this, please join us live at twitch.tv/theastropub. And for now, youtube.com/theastropub live, where we do these lives on Saturdays at 4 p.m. 4 p.m. Yes, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Love to have you come and ask your own questions to the cast. And remember to hit that subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube, especially after the fact. And if you're watching this live, make sure you check out the Captain's Table Podcast YouTube, which is youtube.com/@the-Captain's-Table-Podcast. It's in the description below. Trying to build that channel up a little bit more because that's going to be where all of these videos live. And check us out on Spotify, the Captain's Table Podcast on Spotify. I'd love to see you there too. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out. And like I always say, hope to see you someday in the black.